Hello, 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 beautiful friends. Hope everybody is fabulous after New Year. And yeah, getting into 2025. It's just amazing how quickly last year went. I am still on holiday mode, so really committed to showing up for my beautiful friends and followers throughout this holiday period. I want to hop in live quickly today to talk about something really, really important, which is response versus reactivity. This is a subject that is really close to my heart and something that I believe we all need to be reminded about on a regular basis. There is a really important energy surrounding the way that we communicate with others. And as a self-aware person, it's key that we become really attuned to knowing that we are responding to another rather than reacting to another. And I'm going to talk to you about the difference there. When we communicate consciously with other people, we communicate consciously with them from a place of response, which means we really need to be aware of when our feelings are affecting the way that we are communicating, because that is inappropriate. It is inappropriate for us to throw our emotion at another person in communication anytime. It can show up by being excessive or being deficient. So if we are being passive, if you like, if we are emotional, sorry that there is a little beep there if you can hear it. If we are emotional when we react, we will be fueling the way that we feel into the communication that we are having with another person. Whereas to respond, it means that we are actually taking a step back from our personal emotional behaviors and actually maybe taking a few deep breaths and coming back to that person with a response. And sometimes, when we're trained in that and we've practiced it and we learned it, it can be very, very immediate. But for others, it might mean that we need to learn how to switch from reactivity to response by using various different techniques. We might need to take 10 deep breaths. We might need to create a sentence where we say, actually, this is creating some kind of feeling for me that I need to process before I can respond to you. Or, do you mind if I take a little bit of time to get back to you on this, because I can notice there is some emotional stuff moving through me. Or maybe this has triggered me a little bit and I just need to sit and process before I come back to you. And it's really important that we do that, because what happens when we are reactive in our communication to another person, that we will most often regret it. And that we will most often calm down, rebalance, recenter, and wish we had responded differently. Because our reactivity is our emotions that are, based on things that have happened in the past, things that may never happen. They're based on our own trauma patterns, our own mental imbalances, and previous situations often. And then we are actually using that fire to answer another person. So then that person needs to somehow process our emotion, which is not appropriate for them. It is not their job to process your emotion. If you are feeling something, it is your responsibility to sit with it until you gain enough clarity to then respond to that person. And that response could be, actually, you know what? It's not okay for me. It doesn't sit well with me. Thank you for the opportunity. Or the response could be something like, I've sat with that and realized it did trigger some old emotion in me, and I'm going to take responsibility and look at that. But yeah, thanks for the opportunity. I'm really interested. Or obviously many different scenarios. What we need to be responsible for is the way that we communicate, so that we do not throw our reactive emotion at someone else. We have the self-awareness to be able to process, sit with it, meditate, breathe, do some journaling, something to process the emotion that has come up for us, so we can be accountable to the fact and take ownership that that is ours before we throw it at another person. And this is where conscious communication is really, really, really important. To communicate consciously, with another means that we are really taking ownership of what is ours, processing it, and then coming back to that person with a response rather than with a reaction. It is such a profound learning once we step into response versus reaction. And I challenge you to have that as a little bit of a mantra, for yourself. Am I responding or am I reacting? Do I feel like I should speak now, or do I need to process that and then respond to that person? If you're reactive, it's going to be fiery. It's going to be emotional. It will come from your emotional body. So that is yours to process before you respond to another person. You do not throw your emotion at someone else and expect them to unpack it. Otherwise, communication is going to get really, really difficult. A couple of different ways that reactivity can show up. If something is invited into your field and it triggers your emotional body, then you will often get feelings that start to surface. You can feel that really somatically in the body, so you might not know what it is if you're not practiced. You might get stomach ache or a hollowing of the belly, or a feeling of constriction in the chest, or the throat might close up a little bit. So many different things. You might also experience as anger that just comes up really quickly. I don't like what that person just said. I don't agree with that. That's not right. And then you throw your emotion at them when it's actually opinion based. So you might want to think about ways that you can process the emotion in your body just by closing your eyes, taking a few deep breaths, sitting with it, writing it out, what's coming up for you. You might also feel a real passive inward reaction where you close up. You don't want to say anything. You hide away. You avoid that person, or you don't respond to them. You don't answer them if they've messaged you or emailed you or whatever. And this is quite a passive way to react. It's still very, very harmful, because anything that you take in and don't process is going to harm you inside. But also then there is another person, or maybe a group of people who are affected by the way that you have reacted, so we need to take that into consideration as well. So to learn how to respond versus react is to always bring it back to yourself. When you receive information, when you hear something, when you read a comment on social media, when you receive a proposal from someone, when you receive a text or a message or an email, you must process the information before you come back to that person with communication. It's important to see and take ownership for anything internal that it may trigger or create within you, and sit with the processing of that before you come back with anything, so that the other person or people involved do not become, the receiver of your emotional impact. We must never throw our emotion at another. It's not appropriate for us to do that. Bring it back to yourself. Take 10 deep breaths, sit with it and say, how do I really want to show up here? How do I respond to this and not react to it? You've got to identify whether what you want to say, what you want to communicate is your responsive nature, in your power, empowered, compassionate, truthful, integral, authentic, or whether it is emotional stuff that is just part of one of your personal triggers or trauma patterns or opinions that needs to be processed before you speak. All right, so it's important. Always respond, do not react. One final piece, if you find this difficult and you find that you are often reactive, fiery, overly emotional, that you introvert and hold your emotion in, or that you extrovert and throw your emotion out to the world, there may be blockages and imbalances in your energy body. There may be an impact of congested blockage in the solar plexus and in the sacral, maybe all of those lower chakras. There may be some energy work that really, really would be beneficial to take place in your system, so that you find it easier to regulate your emotions. That actual difficulty, and even sometimes the feeling of impossibility to regulate your emotions, is a thing if there is blockage, if there is imbalance. So it is time to address it in a way that we kind of go, well, actually I may need to heal here. I may need to do some work here, receive some energy healing, some coaching, some counseling, whatever I need to help me to actually unblock this and unravel this so that it stops being detrimental to my communication. Reactive communication is extremely harmful, and we want to evolve from that way of communicating if we want to lift our vibration to be the best version of ourselves we can possibly be. Thank you for listening, community, and I will chat to you all soon.